Fate. What does it mean to you? To some it's luck, to some it's a representation of God himself. To some it's comfort in the form of a reminder that some things are just meant to be. But don't worry, this isn't going to be some super philosophical video. I yap about stats and calculate the answers to hard-hitting questions like if penguins can tank a planet. Yes, the answer is yes for some reason. I've been very vocal about my dislike for the Ares Orion saga of Inazuma 11, but despite that, I think to some extent it's a perfect embodiment of fate, specifically the concept of things being meant to be. While watching through the saga as a kid, one thing I noticed is that a lot of plot points are just reused from the previous sagas, almost one for one in the vast majority of cases. This could just be terrible writing, and let's be honest, in today's day and age there's a high chance it is. But we're just gonna ignore all of that and look way too deep into a saga that really isn't that deep to begin with. So let's start by defining fate. Google states that fate is something that's destined to happen, turn out, or act in a particular way. This is shown constantly throughout Ares and Orion in the form of backstories, plot points, and character traits. There's a multitude of examples to choose from Ares and Orion, but I'm gonna just focus on this one specific one for this part of the video. And I'm not gonna lie, this almost made me get up and turn the episode off when it first aired. As a kid, my favorite installment in the series was Inazuma 11 3. This was due to it basically being the smash ultimate of OG Inazuma 11. Featuring an all-star team of many beloved characters we fought alongside, in addition to many beloved characters we've also fought against along the way, as well as the final boss team being from Africa, which is where my family is from. But the older I've gotten, the more and more I've been able to appreciate and understand the masterpiece that is Inazuma 11 2, and as of right now I would say it is my favourite installment. One of the flagship characters of the installment is Fuki Shiro, also known as Sean Frost. And instead of following his evolution as a player, we follow his evolution as a person. From mental health and identity struggles to coping with loss. The writers did a phenomenal job at making Fuki feel human and relatable, as well as an accurate depiction of how a child would struggle and attempt to handle such a life-altering event. For those who aren't aware, at a very young age, Fuki ends up losing both parents and his twin brother due to an avalanche. This then leads to him developing dissociative identity disorder, having a dissociated identity of Fuki Atsuya, his deceased twin brother, as a result of the last words he heard from his parents. I'm not gonna lie, Inazuma 11 2 is so peak, oh my god. Now let's move over to Orion. Within this alternate timeline, the tragedy that struck the Fuki family never occurred, and the entire family is still alive and well. Which leads us to the Ichihoshis. I'm not gonna get into his backstory the same way I just did with Fuki's, because I'm not gonna lie, the writing is dog. But it's essentially the same as the Fuki twins, which ties back to the initial point of the video, fate and things being meant to be. The event itself seems fated to happen regardless of the victim. If it didn't happen to the Ichihoshis or the Fukis in a different timeline, it will probably happen to someone else. It's pretty depressing and morbid, not gonna lie, so let's move on to a bit more of an upbeat example from the previous sagas. Inazuma 11 is no stranger to voyages throughout space, time, and even a combination of both at once. Which brings us to Team Ogre attacks and Go-To Chronostones. Two pieces of media that kind of follow the exact same blueprint. A somewhat antagonistic organization gathering their most elite soldiers and sending them back in time to put an end to football. However, despite the ridiculous gap in power, and both organizations almost succeeding, even history itself being changed and altered to stop their causes, couldn't even stop fate, or even slightly bend it in their favor in the end. You could argue that maybe they even accelerated fate. Cause this got me thinking, who the hell is stopping alternate timeline Ryelle? They have Margin the Great, Omega the Hand, Maximum Fire, Prime Legend, and more battle experience. I think Gemini Storm are gonna pull up and just get fucking toasted. Fate in Inazuma 11 reminds me of the debate, what would win? An unstoppable force or an immovable object? But instead of picking a side, it decided to just choose both. You could also argue that the long shot chain at the end of Orion represents the chains of fate, but this video is long enough already and sick and tired of being positive about Orion and Ares because they, you know my opinion on Orion and Ares. With that said, it's fate that brought you to my channel today, so like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. That's not me asking you, by the way, that's a threat. Set the world aflame.